Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday, February 4th Outreach and Network Guild meeting. As always, we will start by finding some grounding in these tumultuous times. So I invite you to close your eyes or find a soft gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. And start to notice your breath moving in and out of your body, not trying to change it necessarily, just noticing what it does on its own. And notice the weight of your body on the seat underneath you, being held to the land by gravity. And just allow yourself to sink a little bit more deeply onto the land, into the land in this moment. Maybe there are some spots in your body where you're holding something, maybe there's some tension. Just see if you can let that melt and flow or fall down onto the land. And we can reorient ourselves to being on the land as the focal point, as the center of everything that we are, everything that is, was, and will be. And we'll just take a few moments to notice what it feels like to be part of the land, to be in relationship with all our relations on the land and in the land. You might see in your mind's eye where your body is in relation to the building you're in and the parcel that you're on. And I invite you to cultivate some intention in this moment to be a good steward of the land, to remember to be open to receiving wisdom and knowledge about how to care for the land from our indigenous relatives, from other beings and people in our spheres, and from ourselves and each other. Take a couple more deep breaths just to leave anything, let go of anything that isn't serving us in being present in this time together. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and join us back in the circle. And I'll just do a sort of short and quick kind of check in, which is what is a type of tree that you have noticed recently, a tree relative? And the circle as I see it is Ben, Roland, and me. Over to you, Ben.
Big leaf maple and many big leaf maples. Yesterday on the walk with Zelda, a lot of them here are dropping significant parts of themselves. So we have a lot of kind of massive, stumpy, interesting, sculptury looking big leaf maples that I keep noticing on my walks. So that's me. Over to you, Roland.
The ubiquitous West Coast cedar. Over to you, Ronnie.
Definitely the live oak. We have so many very old oak trees here, and I'm just constantly grateful that they're here. And um, yeah, they feel like family. So that's nice. All right. With that, I will share our agenda for today. At the charrette, we presented our proposal for integrating storytelling into um, our events and programming, and then our outreach. So, thinking about ways that we can capture people's experiences that are organic and efficient so that we can then share those as testimonials out in the world in a variety of forms. So, in terms of today, we have a few topics we could talk about. One of them is thinking about that proposal and that plan for this year. What are some ways we can begin to implement that plan um, more, and thinking more about sort of the nitty gritty of how that can happen. Um, we also have a question about how do we want to store our social media passwords or all our account passwords so that people can access them and keep them updated in a seamless way. We have a topic talking about our Facebook and Instagram ecology and involvement with Meta in general. And then how do we use social media, tips and tricks about things we're learning about the various platforms, including Blue Sky and Mastodon, which are newer platforms, both to us and also in general, and work differently than Facebook and Instagram in different ways. So um, those are our possible topics, and we could just go around and highlight what topic or topics feel like priorities to you for this meeting. Over to you, Ben.
I think I have my suggestion would be that we kind of put a timer on for some of the logistical things like the passwords and how do we transitioning over to Blue Sky. Because it feels relevant and timely, but I don't think it should deserve a lot of attention. Or probably doesn't need a lot of time. And then talking about like what are the next steps to actually start to move forward with the plans that we're making. I don't have strong feelings about any of it. I could be easily swayed too. So over to you, Roland.
I like the idea of putting a timer on the more on some of the stuff, even just to try that out as a way of moving through more stuff in a meeting. It I don't know if we've ever really done that, but it could be an interesting thing to try. Um, and so I don't. This looks fine as it is. So hang on, Facebook has. Okay, yeah, I was going to suggest something, but I think it fits under future idea. So I will leave it for now. So this seems good for me. Over to Ronnie.
I'm actually wondering if we want to start with the logistical social media stuff first, because that's chore related and is kind of related to the everyday stuff that we're doing. So I feel like it's important. And I like the timer idea. I don't want to spend definitely not more than half an hour on that. Um, and then use the rest of the time to talk about the annual plan, if that sounds good. Any objections?
No
No.
objections. I would add um, a small addendum. We may find that there's something that we want to talk more about. So to stick with the time, it would probably be just doing a check-in to see if we want to, if this feels like timely and we need to talk about it now, or if we should port it over to the next meeting. So just so that we're agreed on that as a way of working the end.
Yep. Good idea.
How much time do we want to start with? 15 minutes and see where we land?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of a random number generator. So yeah, let's start with 15 and see.
Okay. So I'm starting the timer. So starting with the passwords, what we've done in the past is we've used LastPass. So as far as I know, that LastPass still has at least some of the passwords. I lost access to LastPass, but I could like get the password again and start using it again, and I'm fine with that. So I'm curious if people are fine with continuing using LastPass or if you have alternative proposals for password storage. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, I think that was actually my thought was why not LastPass? And um I too have lost an awareness of where it is. I probably have access to it, but I need to remember. I have my own personal LastPass, which I use for everything. And so anyhow, that would be, I think it would be great to have a friend's, a Lifeboat Academy LastPass where we keep everything. And that might also um, require me to do a little cleanup on the passwords I have in my own LastPass that should get shared to the Lifeboat. Over to you, Roland.
Yeah, having a friend's LastPass sounds like a good idea, and I would suggest a backup to the backup, and also have a plain text document, probably in the outreach folder that also has a copy of the passwords. Over to Ronnie.
I thought we had a friend's LastPass, but maybe I'm misremembering. I I thought that we did, so it'd be good to look into that. I agree about having a backup. I Google Drive's not very secure. LastPass and password storage things are a lot more, they're encrypted, whereas Google Drive is not. So I would propose there's an encrypted alternative to Google Drive that's called CryptPad. We could also store them offline, like Ben could store them on Obsidian or something like that. Um, I don't really think anybody's going to try and hack into our Google Drive and get our passwords for Lifeboat Academy. And also, we just don't know where things are headed, especially with like the current oligarch takeover of personal information. So, yeah, curious what people think about those ideas. Over to Ben.
Yeah, I just as we were talking, I did a recovery on our LastPass for Friends of the Lifeboat Academy. And it's Friends of the Lifeboat Academy at gmail.com is the login. So we have that. I agree a backup is good, and I agree keeping it in Google Docs is not. And so yeah, I would support. I think I would go old fashioned and actually just keep a non-cloud based document on one of the and then print it out and have it here on one of the computers and print it out rather than I actually am curious about I'm mindful of time and I'm curious about the cryptodoc or whatever you were talking about because I have been thinking about not just Facebook but Google also has shown a willingness to pander to autocrats. And so there's a part of me that's thinking about how we segue everything into a more secure location given the craziness of the world. So over to you, Roland.
Cool. And in the same way that we reduce suffering, we can't eliminate it. We can reduce risk, not eliminate it.
Yep.
So currently, this is our best guess.
Yep.
Over to Ronnie.
Yeah, that all sounds good. CryptPad is definitely not as sophisticated as Google Drive yet. It's I guess like I don't know if open source is the right word, but it's not owned in the same way that Google is. But it's definitely a lot more secure, and it's ever evolving. So there's an Excel version on CryptPad that isn't nearly as good as Sheets, but it's getting there. So yeah, we could talk about that another time. But I'm really into digital security right now, so I'm happy to have that conversation. Um, so I think in terms of next steps, would be if we could each compile current passwords we have for things. So if you have access to an account and you know that the password works, make a list of those passwords. And then I'm just trying to think of a secure way to send them to Ben so that they're all in one place. I'm not sure how encrypted Slack is. I don't think it's very secure. Yeah, we'll need to think about that. Or I guess we just put them in LastPass, right? And then you can get them from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ben, if you could send out the LastPass login info, and then we can each compile passwords in there, and then they'll be in LastPass. Okay, awesome. Anything else on passwords before we move on? Over to you, Ben.
No, that's it. I'm just trying to get the LastPass stuff set while we're talking. So no, I'm good. On to you, Roland.
All right, that was 7.5 minutes. So next topic. Talking about Facebook/Instagram/Meta in general. Considerations for staying, leaving, thoughts, feelings, concerns, etc. I don't want to start yet, so I'll pass it to you, Ben.
I am in favor of leaving, and I think I just did I won't even call it research. I did a Google search yesterday about how to do group-like things in the Fediverse. So it probably applies to both Mastodon and Blue Sky. I have significant concerns about even being able to trust what we are seeing and what is being seen of us on Meta moving forward. So the fact that everyone's there and a lot of people, and the other thing too is we've been kind of checking in with different groups on Facebook groups about whether or not they're thinking about leaving. Everyone seems to be thinking about leaving, and it's just a matter of figuring out the mechanics. So, and there's also I think just given the current climate, I am more interested in having better contact with a smaller number of people than trying to keep as long a list as possible, you know. So I see very few downsides to leaving, and we don't really get much traction or anything on Facebook anyhow, you know. So I think it's what people are used to, but I'm okay with us not being there. Over to you, Roland.
I am in favor of leaving Meta. Um, and in part, it's for the last point that Ben brought up, um, noticing the the amount of activity that there is on Blue Sky and on Mastodon compared to Instagram and Facebook is remarkable. The number of people that we seem to be reaching seems to be much larger. Yeah. And we've even had some conversations, like people have actually made comments, which very rarely happened, except for our there's a member of the lifeboat builders who has made comments, and we've had some interaction, but only the one really. So, and I've been doing a little test. I usually share when I post a meme to the Lifeboat Academy Facebook page, I will go to my personal page and I'll share it. And I've just been wondering why none of my friends have been liking them except for my mom, whom I appreciate that she sees them and she lets me know by liking it. So recently what I've been doing is, instead of sharing from the Lifebook page, I've just been sharing the meme directly to my page, and suddenly my friends are reacting to it, to the memes. And it hasn't been a full week, but every day I've had, 2 to 3 times more, so 3 to 5 people who will from my Facebook friend group who will like it. So there seems to be a weirdness there. And there's Catherine Hayhoe has actually written an article about what she's noticed in terms of how things have changed in the number of hits that she's been getting on Facebook that doesn't reflect on other platforms that she uses. So there seems to be something funny going on. So I am in favor, for all of those reasons, I am in favor of exiting the metaverse over to, I know that's not what it's called. Oh, and I have a question for Ronnie too. I've asked in one of the Facebook groups if they were thinking of moving over, and there's been a lot of discussion around it. And some people respond with just the letter F, like Frank. And I don't know what that means. And it seems to be favorable because sometimes it's matched with that they're in favor of it, and then they'll put an F. And I don't know if that means anything, or if there's sort of like a pandemic of typos going out there where everybody's typing the letter F. So I thought, if out of the three of us, if anyone would know, that Ronnie would be most likely. So that's the mysterious letter F. Yes. Thank you. That's the perfect way of wording it. So over to you, Ronnie.
Makes me think of Mr. F in Arrested Development. Um, Nobody knows what the F means. Anyway, I've never heard of that. I have no idea what that's about. Um, yeah, I agree with everybody so far. Yeah, I'm very over Facebook. Um, Instagram is feels harder for me to let go of because I've just been using Instagram so long, and I still use it a lot. I use it less and less these days, but um, I use it a lot personally to be in contact with people and share things. But I do also acknowledge that I already know people who've left Instagram as well. So I'm definitely not going to fight anyone on that. And I'm excited to hear that there's so much more activity um, on the other platforms, and I think leaning into relationships and good old email, snail mail is not a bad thing.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of people on our email list, and there are people we're in contact with who primarily write us via email. So I don't think we're losing much at all from
Mhm.
leaving Meta. So um, and there's, as long as the internet is around, there's going to be new platforms and new things to try. And this is just kind of where we are now. So, um, seeing as we are, oh, okay, we're at 15 minutes. Um, I wanted to just wrap up this portion by identifying next steps. So, are people okay with that? Okay.
Mhm.
Um, So next steps, the things that come to mind are we have people in our Facebook group. Not many people have been very active, but do we want to basically, I guess, do we want to make a post or a series of posts everywhere that we are on Meta, say in the Facebook group, the Facebook page, and Instagram saying we're moving to we're on these other platforms, we're leaving these platforms. If you want to stay in touch, make an account or follow us, whatever. Is there anything else that we want to do to, um, I guess, keep certain relationships or certain content? I'm curious what other people think. Over to you, Ben.
Mhm. Um, well, one of the things I've read just in general right now, because of the troubles, is it's a good time to make sure that your contacts are up to date. And so it may be that we also post an ask if we don't have your email, like here's how to sign up for the email list, or here's how to share. I mean, we easily can share, if you have any questions or you want to keep in touch, here's friends at the Lifeboat Academy. But also maybe asking if people want to share their contact information for us, and then make sure that we record it somewhere. And I bet that's probably not for this meeting, but for future file is similarly, how do we want to back up our contact book? Just like with our passwords, so that we have them in case for some reason the internet goes down. But I think generally speaking, yeah, and I guess the other question is, when do we want to actually delete accounts? And or do we want to just stop using them? And I think my go-to would be both, and so stop using them for a period of time and then delete them after a month or some time period. Those are my thoughts on next steps. Roland?
Yeah, so thinking about um what the exit looks like, and that might actually be another conversation. I'd suggest that would be another conversation, because there's the timing of the exit. How much time do we want before we remove ourselves? And then so by when do we want to have completed with Meta? For myself, just loosely, I decided that I was going to um, uh, uh, um, what I've been doing is posting a few things that are actually links to my Mastodon account, not a direct link to, not just posted to Facebook. And I've been letting people know every once in a while I'll post something about I'm transitioning, this is blah 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 blah. So different ways of saying it. And I've decided that I was going to stay on for about a year before and I've got it marked on my calendar when it's a year from when I decided to do that, when I would delete all of my meta stuff. That's a loose date, because if something comes up where I'm sort of like, okay, I'm really out of here, then I'll just delete everything if I can. So that's what I've been doing. I was also wondering about, in the same way that there's a lot of traction from the Facebook groups that I've asked if they're transitioning. We could also say we're going to be transitioning and ask for, what platforms do you use and what have you been enjoying? Which brings me to my last consideration, which is exploring other platforms. I haven't really explored it yet. I think that I heard it from you first, Ronnie, the MeWe, which is supposed to be much more like Facebook than either Mastodon or Blue Sky. So it might also be checking out other platforms to see how they work, what they're about. Um, uh, I really like Mastodon. I like everything that I know about Mastodon. I don't know very much about MeWe or other platforms. So uh, I was also wondering about, instead of just posting on Facebook when we're nearing the end of exiting, sending a messenger message to, I don't know if we can do that, to all of the members of the lifeboat builders group, and let them know, give them the address of where we're migrating to. So that's it. Over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, I think these are all really good questions and ideas. I haven't heard of MeWe, but that sounds interesting. Um, in terms of just in terms of for now, I like Roland's idea of starting to make a few posts that say, by the way, we're on Blue Sky. By the way, we're on Mastodon. Um, just to kind of start the ball rolling, but not do anything major for now. And see who follows us and see who's already on there. So um yeah, that's my thoughts. Over to you, Ben.
I agreed, and I think that this conversation, like there are enough little bits in our next steps that I think that the next step is let's write down a plan, just so we, you know, have something all coherent and say like this is okay, we're gonna step one, the here's our links over how often do we want to post, the timeline, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's worthwhile just to write this down as a proposal, so that we have all the details in one place. And I suspect it will, once we do that, I think I don't feel a very strong passion around any of the, a year, 6 months, whatever, or how many posts or how often. So I think it's really kind of just having it written down so that we have something to kind of roll with, and we're not constantly asking the same questions, you know. And in terms of exploring other platforms, I would like us to not be on the bleeding edge of new technology. So I think if we hear like there was a surge on Blue Sky, lots of people are picking it. There's been some activity on Mastodon. I think if we hear of, if we're tracking, are there new platforms that are suddenly getting a lot of attention, then let's check it out. But there's so many platforms, and so many of them kind of are bubbles and they come and go, and I don't want to invest a lot of energy trying to figure every last one out. Let somebody else do that work and just tell us. So, and I think I'm good. I think this feels like enough for me. Roland?
Yeah, I'm done. Ronnie.
So are we coming up with this proposal now, or we're tabling it for next time? Okay. Okay.
We already talked about we probably need more conversation about this, so I'm just
Okay, got it. Okay, so that's not totally an action item, but it is important. So I'm gonna make sure it's okay. All right, yes, I'm good with this. Um, Okay, so let me go back up. We talked about passwords, we talked about meta. We did already talk a little about Blue Sky and Mastodon. Do we want to use our remaining time to talk about how we use social media, or do we want to transition to the outreach plan? Over to you, Ben.
I'd like to transition. I figure we're going to come back to this conversation anyhow, and that's one of the things to come back to. Yeah, so transition for me. Roland?
Agreed. Ronnie?
Okay. All right, so I'm going to copy and paste this and move it down. Okay, so these are the action items for what we need to do to implement this plan. So thank you, Ben. They're written down somewhere. I'm not sure what's a good process for this. Do we want to just go into each of them and review them as a starting place? Does that seem
I think
reasonable?
that'd be useful for me. I wrote them down and I can't really remember. So yeah,
Okay.
probably.
Okay, so let's go into capturing and sharing takeaways. So from the outreach proposal, we talked about converting takeaway or last round shares from various circles into testimonials, and doing that by first asking permission for people to share their recordings, extracting the recordings to create separate videos, and also transcribing them into written testimonials. I'm just going to go through all of these tasks because I think they're pretty short. So that was that one. And then okay, so we also talked about recording people's reflections to turn into testimonials from mentoring check-in one-on-ones and things like that. So incorporating more reflection, sort of like intentional reflection time in a way that those can be easily recorded and shared. And then the third one was creating an event where people can come together in a shared reflection space. And this would be coordinated across a few of the guilds. So research and learning could think about the shape of the space, maybe the questions that are asked in the circle. Outreach will be set up to extract those recordings to share out. And Kath could be a consultant also for how to shape the space. And I'm actually meeting with her tomorrow morning about this exact topic. So I feel like the timing is good. Yeah, so those are the three elements of this proposal. The takeaways from circle rounds, the Lifeboat Builder reflection in mentoring, and creating a new reflection group event. So let's just start with some thoughts, considerations, what's kind of bubbling up for you as we go through this. Over to you, Ben.
Well, and I'll stick to one consideration at a time. I'm aware that actually all of them involve some coordination with other guilds. The first one is the cleanest. And it strikes me that that's kind of a basic process. The other ones are creating more opportunities for that kind of thing to happen. So it really feels like the first capturing and sharing the takeaways, it seems like a really good place to start. Kind of keeping it simple and keeping it contained and then rolling it out from there. Over to you, Roland.
I'm not feeling the shape of it right now, so I don't know what to say. So I'm going to lean into the magic of the circle and pass over to Ronnie.
Yeah, I think focusing on the first process is good. Just getting in the habit of talking about how we use the recordings, asking people for permission, and then just doing some test runs. So identifying, and we could even do this retroactively. So we could take, as long as we ask permission, of course, from people, but taking a previous circle or a soon to be circle and going to that last round and just doing some listening and seeing what pops out, what seems like a good testimonial to share out, and then isolating that section of, I almost said film, it's not film, it's digital, but isolating that section of film.
Yeah.
And then and also, so creating, I think it's good to do the two parts, so the recording on its own and then transcribing it as a written testimonial. And then we could create a folder, and in the outreach folder for the recorded testimonials and the written testimonials, and then those become content that we could make into posts. Yeah, how does that sound? Over to Ben.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good outline, and that we're gonna hit a couple places where that's gonna take longer than I thought. I like the idea of, can we, so what I'm hearing, I'm paraphrasing to make sure that I'm hearing it right. The first thing that we would do is go back through recent videos of events to see if if there's anything in there that we can identify that is that kind of testimonial thing. And then use, if we can identify some, then using that as a sort of a test to isolate the nuggets and then figure out how they get captured and saved. And I think there's a next step in there too, which is how they get posted. Do they go on the website? Do they only go to social media? If they go on the website, is there a rotation? You know, like there's all sorts of details, I think, that'll come up when we get into it. But and I think that the next step beyond that, so leaning into what we already have and seeing whether or not we can pull anything useful out. And then I think the next step is to identify what are some future events where we think this would be a good thing, you know, like, and we're starting Lifeboat 101 this week, so that should also identify, you know, when's the next Connect the Dots Club, etc. But yeah, I feel like this is the plan, and then it's just kind of a matter of starting to work through it step by step. Over to you, Roland.
We could go back and look at things, or we could just start now. You know, instead of going back, we could just decide from this point, we're going to start implementing this. I think it's one of these things where, how, like you were saying at the last meeting, I think actually, Ronnie, you know, about going back and seeing if there are any useful quotes from old articles and old videos. You know, it's something that comes up a lot, and then, you know, who has the time to do it? So if we decide, you know, let's just start now fresh and start implementing ways and testing out ways. And I would recommend also that we're testing out ways of getting testimonials, so that we're not trying to make something happen. Then we're starting with a clean slate. There's not a weight of all this potential backlog, and with the caveat that if anyone, I think there's some real gems in the stuff that we have recorded, and if anyone wants to go back and find them, then have at. But just as a general understanding of, for this, I would recommend that we just start now and see what comes up. And it could also be useful to list the different ways in which potential testimonials can be shared. If they're very short, can they just be memes? you know, lifeboat builder said blah 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 blah, as well as clips and you know, how is there a place for it on the website and all sorts of what are the different ways in which we can use this information. So over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, I like the idea of starting fresh, starting now with the process because it's a new year. We'll preface each new gathering by saying, we're doing this thing now. Do we have your permission to use your last round share? You can also give permission or take away permission at the end. Just let us know, you know, sometimes people might end up sharing something that is really vulnerable. Um, and then we could have like the process, you know, because Roland, you generally record or you generally put them on YouTube. And then I could take the YouTube video and go to the last round of shares and watch and pick, try to identify at least one that is shareable. So if we have at least one testimonial per event over time, we'll have this collection. And my only other consideration is just to have fun with it. And just, you know, if someone says something really cool, like, oh, that would be a great meme with a picture of Zelda or, you know, something like that. Just think of different creative ways to diversify it a little bit, and make it engaging, make it interesting. Um, and yeah, I'm curious how that sounds for a process. Over to Ben.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that we shouldn't go back and look at what we have, in part because I don't have any problem kind of starting and going forward, but I think it will be trickier than we think it's going to be. And so by taking a look at what we've had already, we might get a sense of what are the kinds of things that we're looking for. And that time consideration, actually, I think it's not just about going back to what we have already. See, what I'm thinking about is not that we go and try to capture what may have been lost, but actually we just use that as an available trial pile. We don't have to wait for a recording to come up and to make sure that we remember da 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 da. We can just go and see, do we have any already? And how do our recordings, how do our meetings generally work? Do we have that takeaway in a place that's recorded and that we can find? And I like the idea of keeping it fun. It makes me think of the badges and the tokens. And, you know, if we start to get this on people's radar, that they'll start to identify, oh, that'd be a good meme. You know, it's not just on us to do it. Likewise, for the caretakers or whoever is facilitating the meeting, you know, can we plant the seed that as part of your job, can you have an ear open to any takeaways that would be really interesting? And then, you know, just note the time or something like that. Note the topic, and then it makes it easier to find it. But I feel like, I mean, I think this is like, let's just do something really small. You know, can we go back to the most recent meetings and see if we can find one that would work, and then transfer that to a file and transcribe it and figure out where it would go. But just kind of keep it super, super simple to start, and then let it go that way. Over to you, Roland.
I was thinking in terms of the permissions and reflecting on what Ronnie was saying about people can agree, or the way that what I heard or what was going on in my head is that people can agree that we can take something that they've said and then they'll say something really vulnerable. And so as part of our process, it's sort of doing a stepped permission asking, you know, a general permission. And then if there's, for the person who may have said something that we want to share, to let them know you said this amazing thing. I really like to be able to share it for the Lifeboat Academy. It's this. Would that be okay? How do you want to be identified? Do you want to be identified, or stuff like that? Uh, Over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think it would be cool to just send them the clip and say, we identified this. It's really great. Could you watch it and let us know? Or if you already know you're fine with it, great. Um, Likewise, here's a quote we want to use from you. Because also that communicates to them, like, we hear you and we value what you shared, and this is a really good nugget that we appreciate. And how does that sound? Because even if someone does give permission, it could be jarring if all of a sudden they're on social media and then there's a video of themselves playing. They're like, what?
Mhm.
So yeah, but I agree about keeping it small, starting with a small experiment. Um, I would be happy to start watching some videos from probably, I guess, like maybe the end of last year, different agreement circles and things like that, to see if anything stands out, and yeah, start that process. Over to Ben.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that's a great idea, Roland. And it's also because, and for the reasons that Ronnie was saying, it shows respect. It also, people, if when we find something, it's one thing to agree to a generality, and it's something else entirely to, here's this thing you said. And it's also, it's easier to agree to the specifics than to the generality. Because it's like, this is my quote, and they can just say, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, put my name next to it. And that, because I can imagine, I don't like hearing my voice, I don't like seeing my image. So I would be like, I would probably say, you want to quote me? Fine. You want to slap it on an image of Zelda? That's great. You want to show a video of me saying it? No. Like, even though it's the same content, like, I'm not as happy with that. Um, but I think that, like, kind of really it's giving people the fine-grained ability to say what they're comfortable with, and with no pressure. Because I mean, hopefully we'll be gathering enough of this that none of them will feel like, oh, if we can't use this one, then you know. So anyhow, I feel like this is a great plan, and I'm excited to do it. And I was thinking about, I too would be, I don't know if I'll have any time, so I don't want to commit to it, but I I would like to try to see if I can find some. And I'm just thinking, if Ronnie, how do we keep a system so that we're not both watching the same videos? We could sort of spread out, and it could be you go back to last year, and I could actually just go back chronologically and look at, like, what's the last recording we have, and then the one before that and the one before that. So, and again, I'm not promising to do it, but I am curious. I would like to do it to see if I can find something. um Over to you, Roland.
Uh, well, to start, if somebody has a quote that we want, said something that we want to quote, it may, I think you were saying this, Ben, that we give them the option of how we use it. So, because what you were saying about not wanting to be seen on video, on or being shy about being on social media in that way. Um, and then there's also, how do you want to be identified? If they agree, yeah, that'd be great.
Mhm.
How do you want to be identified? Do you want your full name? Do you want just your first name? Do you want to be anonymous? Uh, what are the options that we can offer, or that we can suggest? Um,
Mhm.
because somebody, yeah. So again, giving people choice. Um, And in terms of coordinating, I don't know. I think that we're all different enough that we might pick up on different things. And it may in fact be interesting to see if we pick
Yeah.
up on the same thing, if perchance we look at the same recording. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, because having just done the chapters, and I keep intending on doing them again for the videos, and it's just such a time suck. You know, you're anyway. So I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I might, but I'm not saying that I'm gonna. But it would be good to have a place that when things are discovered, that it goes there, so that we're recording things, all recording what we find in the same place. And I think that would include anything from this point on as well, just sort of like a place where we're saving our proposed quotes. Maybe a table of some sort so that we can identify, is this going to be a video clip or a meme or whatever else. Just where we can record the permission. What permission have we gotten from the quotee or quoter? Anyway, quotee. Yeah. Over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can set up a doc where I can make a table with that info and then share it out and see what people think. And I can start populating it with hopefully the nuggets that I find. Yeah, this sounds like a plan to me. Anything else about this before we wrap up? Over to Ben.
I'm thinking about for that document, or the document and or table. Again, let's start super simple. Like, I'm thinking if we just think of it as like a log, where you could just put in in the document, you know, your name or initials, reviewed these videos, found these clips. Here's the, like, we can just have kind of, until we know exactly what we want to record or how we want to document. And I don't know that this is a good idea. I'm not actually making this as a proposal. I'm just saying, it could be, by the time we start to think about everything on the table, we could get really confused about, oh, we want to have a link. We should have a link to the original video, blah, blah, blah. And instead, like, let's also keep that. I think it's great that we're all on the same page and we have it written down and all of those considerations, but it can just, as far as I'm concerned, it can just be a running narrative, with dates and initials. Over to you, Roland.
Or is that over to me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, start simple, but think about how to make it easy to find again, at least to start. And I would actually also suggest either a target number or a maximum number or a minimal number to use as a test quantity. Yeah. Actually, I don't even know if that's necessary. And given how much time it takes, I think that it'll sort of normalize itself, the amount of time that we can devote to it. So
the min and the max will both be 1.
Yeah, we may actually, yeah. Keep it simple, like Ronnie was saying. Over to you, Ronnie.
Yeah, like I might sit down once a week and be like, okay, I'll spend half an hour doing this, or an hour max, and just see how many I find. And one day I might find 3, and one day I might find 1, and that's just how it goes. So yeah, I agree. Keep it simple, but also keep track so that the information can remain useful and usable. All right, I'm good with this. Is everybody good with this? Okay.
I really like that idea of kind of doing time as the unit. like rather than how many we're going to look for
Mm,
a half an hour, or what can you review in half an hour? What could you find in an hour? And a couple different times, because I think you're right. Sometimes it might be like, wow, this one has three that are, really good. And a lot of them, there may not be anything that really works. But yeah, I feel good about this. I think yeah, I'm good. Roland?
yep, I'm good. Good meeting. We covered a lot in an hour. It's very impressive.
We should do takeaways.
Oh yeah, what's your takeaway for the meeting today? Over to you, Ben.
We've
Putting
got our
that
first
on
video.
YouTube.
He says he loves me.
Lifeboat Builder RJ says, "Ah." Okay, fine, no takeaways.
Good job. That's mine. Okay. See you later. Bye.
Bye.